Student athletes should choose to represent universities primarily based on their want to further their educational and athletic careers. There should be a separation seen between how the student athletes are compensated for their labors, and that separation should be the opportunity to attend college for free with athletic scholarships. I will now turn to the on case. My opponent responds to my contention 1, subpoint A, to address my statement about the legal amount people are allowed to practice. My opponent has one statement that many coaches and players say that the time limits are rarely exceeded. To this, I have one response, and that is that we need to implement the certain requirements that are set out for teams. If we have harsher fines or limitations, the university will be forced to abide by the rules. In contention 1, subpoint B, my opponent had one response to my claim that students are allowed to start a business. My opponent states that it doesn't matter if they are allowed to, but rather matters that they don't have the time. To this, I have one response, and that is that they still have their off-season and summers for them to take their business ventures up and hobbies. In contention 2, subpoint C, my opponent originally made the claim that the profit of brand deals never goes to the athletes. To this statement, I stated that college athletes don't have the proper guidance to be given a large amount of money. To this statement, my opponent had one response, and that they can hire someone or use free online help. To this statement, I have one response, and that is hiring someone or using free online help doesn't guarantee that the student athletes will be prepared for the high amounts of money that they will receive. To my disadvantage, A, subpoint 1, my opponent has no response, so please extend that on the flow sheet. I will now turn on to the off case. In a disadvantage, subpoint B, point 1, I asked if the student could be kicked off the team for underperforming. To this, my opponent had one response, and that was that the student could get fired for underperforming. To this, I want to help us understand the amount of stress that will be put onto the student athletes if they are in constant fear that they will continue or may not be able to continue their job. In my disadvantage, subpoint C, I explained that schools with more money could obtain better athletes. My opponent had one response, and that was that schools with more money already do that. To this statement, I have one response, and that is that I understand that some schools have more money than others, but the proposed new rule of paying student athletes will further hinder the ability of smaller schools to be keeping up with the bigger schools, as their pay will be drastically different. In both advantages, my opponent has no response, so please extend that on your flow sheet. I should win this argument because paying for college athletes' educations, room, food, and books makes more moral sense to the student athletes. These kids need to have a stable environment that promotes their education. The money that they receive should be money going towards their educational and athletic careers. I believe that student athletes should be given the opportunity to play at this high level without the stress of trying to balance if they will get cut from their job, as they are getting paid by the college to do that, not to go to college.